And we thought about doing something as a company, as XP Energy, something useful and good for the creative society. Well, what can we do that is useful for the creative society? Of course, now it's the informing stage, and it is all being done anyway. We decided to do something at the level of XP Energy. We pondered and decided to do something very useful on a large scale to really help the creative society. So, we set the bar a little higher to make it more interesting. And we created, let's say, our third development of XP Energy company. Of course, it turned out to be the simplest in terms of complexity and the least important compared to the first two. But at the same time, it can be very useful for countries. But precisely during the transition from the consumerist format to the creative one. So we've made a multi-purpose complex, Voskhod, sunrise. Yes, it sounds threatening, right?
Well, a little bit, yes, as if...
Yes, the multi-purpose complex Voskhod. Well, sort of in association with something military.
Military.
And threatening, yes.
Probably some kind of strategic object.
Sort of a strategic one, yes. So we've done something that, contrary to its name, is actually aimed at saving lives and creatively building something. But at the same time, for instance, at the level of a country, it is actually designed for the level of united countries, several countries, or a multitude of countries. This multi-purpose complex is aimed at getting rid of the remnants of the consumerist format. After all, even with the transition from the consumerist format to the creative one, there will remain what? Embezzlement, corruption, various fights for power, and so on. In other words, all these vestiges that will continue to linger. So, this multi-purpose complex is a serious development in such a program, which allows you to simply get rid of it all when it is implemented in a country during the transition period. Why? Because wrongdoings would be impossible. I will say even more. For example, if we were to use it now, as of today, even in the consumerist format, I say right away, this is almost unrealistic. Later, I will explain why. But if we use it at the level of a country, for example, in China, then right now, this multi-purpose complex, Voskhod, is capable of saving a lot of lives in China. Why? People there are shot for embezzlement and put in jail for corruption. Imagine, it's the loss of the smartest people. You know, it's like we say, here's an embezzler, a thief. Yes, he.
Such a negative imprint right away, yes.
Negative. And let's look from the other perspective, from the perspective of the creative society. The most valuable thing is human life. It is the first foundation. Yes, he's a thief. Why has he stolen? Because such conditions have been created while a human is weak. We should approach it sensibly and correctly, facing the truth. Any person is weak. Any person is prone to what? To profiteering, to selfishness, to megalomania, and to everything else. These are human weaknesses. Until we accept this as a fact, we cannot resist it. We understand that a person is weak, that a person will be tempted. Yes, they have a punishment. If a person is caught, he is shot. But those are the smartest people who run many industries and the like. That is, as a rule, those are even high-ranking officials. After all, they are very smart, and they believe they are so smart that they can steal from the treasury and no one will notice. That is, they will remain unpunished. And this very point of remaining unpunished is what contributes to a person's weakness. But if, for example, the multi-purpose complex Voskhod is in service in China, literally in service, only to protect people's interest, then any official will understand that it's impossible to steal anything. Why? Because this complex can monitor. Let's say it's an online audit of everything and everyone simultaneously throughout the entire country and even across, not even across multiple countries. That is to monitor any industry, no matter how much someone wants to steal. This complex will notice it. Moreover, it will show who did it, what was taken out, and in what ways and what was done. It sounds like science fiction, I know, but it is so. Moreover, I'm just saying, even though this development ranks third in terms of importance, this complex will be the first one that will be presented to the public. We're finishing testing it now, and we'll prepare a description, and most likely, we'll make it available to the public. There's also a bit of humor here, you know? XP Energy Company is remarkable, not only for its intelligence and ingenuity, but also for an extraordinary sense of humor. Well, I hope everyone remembers that already, right? So we want to make a joke. Why? Because today, this is the most effective complex, the most effective tool in this fight against corruption. As you know, environmentalists are fighting against CO2, against the anthropogenic factor, and they are supposedly going to stop climate change. All countries, all politicians are fighting against what? Corruption. So we give them a tool. This multi-purpose Voskhod complex was precisely designed to fight this consumerist format. Do you know why it is Voskhod?
Why?
It is also interesting why it has been named Voskhod, sunrise. When the sun rises, darkness disappears. All evil lives in darkness. All the theft, all the filth, all the lies, and all the deceit actually take place in darkness. I'll put it simply. If Kazakhstan had had this multi-purpose Voskhod complex in operation at least 3 months before the well-known events in early 2022, these events wouldn't have happened. They simply wouldn't. Even 3 months in advance, it would have exposed everyone and everything, and all the plans would have been destroyed, and a lot of human lives would have been saved. After all, these are human lives. Not only would there have been no upheaval, stress, destruction, or anything else, but lives would have been saved too. Why? Because this system exposes everything. It exposes all possible conspiracies and betrayals. It shows who is a traitor and who is not, who steals and who doesn't steal, who cheats and who doesn't cheat. Well, the system is truly unique. If we take this complex, it is good and all that. But in the consumerist format, it is unacceptable. Do you know why? Because, let's say, even if a top leader wants to have this system deployed in their country, this is very convenient. Imagine, every day, the top leader receives information about the situation in the country. It can be in the form of charts of any kind. A lot is laid out in numbers there, whatever is convenient, and he can look into individual industries or the country as a whole. This is very convenient. He sees who the trader is, let's say, as well as the efficiency of every chief and everything else of each enterprise, if necessary, up to enterprises. It can really show everything. The top leader may be for it, but there are second, third, fifth, and 10th officials who will do anything to prevent it from deploying in their country. They will find a way to explain it and say, this is unacceptable, because a comma is put in the wrong place, or by mistake. And again, this may be classified information that will leak somewhere through this system. You know, one can always tell a lie just to sneak away from something that might expose human deprivation. Although, again, even commercial use of this system is also acceptable. For example, if we consider serious international banks, it's just that when creating it, we analyzed a lot. We dealt with all sorts of things, involved consultants, various experts, financial analysts, and so forth. And we just looked at how it all works. Well, on the one hand, this is interesting. And on the other hand, it is very advantageous for, let's say, a large international bank. They constantly conduct. They have their own security department as well as an audit department and so on. So imagine, what is an audit conducted by their department? They are engaged in. There are a lot of branches and they have to inspect and calculate it all. It's a lot of people who are busy spending money to keep things in order inside the bank. Plus, the security department determines which firms are dangerous, whom to give and whom not to give loans to. While in this case, there is just a single multi-purpose complex which can optimize, say, that very bank to an unlimited extent. Let's put it so. I'm quite serious. First of all, it's the audit of the whole bank, regardless of the number of branches. Online monitoring is going on almost constantly. Moreover, the complex can calculate the efficiency of each employee. Moreover, it can expand the scope of the bank's services. Do you know the most interesting thing that has been done? Not only is it capable of, say, conducting a company assessment, audit, and everything else, but it's also capable of creating a forecast. Let's say a short-term, a medium-term, and a long-term forecast. In other words, it can forecast the development of this or that company. It's actually very interesting. And we tested the complex on leading countries and very large leading companies based on publicly available information. Let's put it this way. That doesn't mean we penetrated them, but we took publicly available information. As a rule, we tested the information from past years and identified the results, so up to 85% of the forecasts were correct. It's really unthinkable when a machine...
It operates like swarm intelligence, right?
Yes, when a machine calculates a company's capabilities, it takes into account everyone and everything, including the human factor, economics and everything else. That is, it makes forecasts. So imagine, for that very bank, it forecasts the growth of one company and the collapse of another company. Whom to give a loan and whom not to. Again, providing support for various transactions and performing them. Plus, conducting that very audit for one or another company. For example, you have a company and you are serviced in a certain bank. However, you have to conduct an audit at other companies
Right.
and forecasts at still other ones. whereas here you have all in one. That is, you are actually being served. Moreover, it is very easy to calculate the demand for certain goods in the market. Plus, the machine is able to analyze, divide all the companies by sectors, and even connect them. In other words, it's enough to prompt a manager if there is a need. Your company needs this. That thing is available there. So it's about connecting and building the so-called islands of cooperation. So it really includes a lot.
The single economy of the creative society is based on this.
Quite right.
By the way,
That's what the machine is designed for, to build a single economy, to rid the creative society of these vestiges of consumerism. In the creative society, this machine is critically needed. That's what it was created for. As for how it can be used in the consumerist format, like I said, it can be used by countries, by those very banks or auditing companies. Well, it has extended capabilities. It is possible to use it in many fields. For example, in a large transnational corporation. On the other hand, it's a very powerful machine. Yes, that's profitable. It optimizes a lot of things. Its adoption can bring billion-dollar profits. And for large companies, even multi-billion-dollar profits. This is clear. But compared to its primary function, it is certainly nothing. The only thing is that, like I said, it's funny. We already predict that no one will show any interest in it until the creative society is built.
Igor Mikhailovich, you said that this system is the simplest in terms of complexity.
Yes.
Couldn't it have been created, I don't know, for example, by other IT companies in the world? Or was there no task to get rid of corruption?
You see, we say that it is the simplest in terms of complexity, taking into account the two projects that were performed before. This is the third development, while the previous two are much more complicated. And they are really more important in the long run for all humankind than this one, while this one is a tool. It's a tool against corruption, against theft, and against stupidity. It's something that can optimize, enhance, and improve a business. It is needed where people really want to have order and really want everything to be fine. People need this in the creative society as a transition until everything gets right. So we decided, instead of playing with ants and sending them back and forth in time, which we cannot do due to certain reasons, we decided to do what we can do. And we've already done it, so to say. We will show it all for people to review. You've touched upon this. Couldn't anyone else do it? I'll put it this way, no one could. If we take the largest IT companies today, then imagine, in order to do what we have done, the most difficult thing is to write a technical specification. Without a technical specification, it's impossible to do this. Well, in order to write a technical specification like the one for the multipurpose complex, Voskhod, you should know it all. What works and how it works, and how to build it all. Just imagine, you have to write a technical specification for every IT professional. And see it as a whole. It's already challenging. Then, at the time of this development, you will need hundreds of specialists involved as consultants, from financial analysts to security experts. In other words, it is actually hundreds of specialists who should constantly consult and adjust this writing. How many IT specialists will it take to write it all out like this? Lots of them. I'm afraid to even voice the number here. And how long will it take? Many years. even if they want to, even if they have technically, let's say, they have everything written. They have a technical specification, consultants and IT specialists. Moreover, in this case, they must be good ones. But it's impossible to do that in less than 5 years, even with the tremendous involvement of everyone and everything. How much will it cost financially? Well, if you look at it honestly, it's hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. Who would go for creating a product that would not be in demand in our
Format.
consumerist format? Well, really,
Of course.
honestly, which of the countries would implement this in service for itself? I'm serious. Joking aside, we'll see it all in real life. Why go far?
Of course.
As I said, it's like fighting corruption. In my understanding, it 100% correlates with fighting climate by means of this wave of fighting CO2, the anthropogenic factor. It's exactly the same. The same amount of money is spent in both cases, and it's just as pointless, and it progresses just as much. Isn't that so?
You've mentioned the key point here that there is no one to set such a task because if we even look at science, in fact, most of the funding of that very science is mostly characterized as sponsorship.
No, well, I agree, but you take science, whereas here we even take the commercial component. I gave you a simple example. For instance, to use it in a bank. If we take major international banks, then a bank would save up to $1.5 billion annually on the smallest things, thanks to optimization. You can deploy it on a larger scale, and it will bring dozens of billions in revenues. If we take an average well-known auditing company, let it be an international auditing company, a medium-sized one, with implementation of this complex, this auditing company can become the leading one, with a turnover of dozens of trillions, and literally within a few years, because it will have no competitors. And those services that it can provide, will anyone be able to pull it off? No, they won't. I mean, it's interesting, even in terms of commerce, but it also exposes corruption, making it impossible to steal. Isn't that interesting? Why do people go to work? A simple question. In order to simply work, right? As they say.
To invent schemes.
Exactly.
Yes. Also minds.
Do you know what one financial analyst told us? When he looked at the complex at the stage of completion, he saw how it worked, and he said, guys, if you created something that would allow people to efficiently steal and cover the traces so that no one would find it, it would be
In great demand.
a huge success. As for what you've done, he said, I'm afraid that no one needs it. We explained to him that it was done for the creative society. He became very enthusiastic and said, yes, for that it will work, but otherwise, such a respectable, authoritative person in financial circles, a sensible man said, well, if it helped to steal, then yes, it would be demanded. But if it identifies thieves, who would shit on one's own head? Only a bat would do that. This is ridiculous, of course, but it's a fact. That's the way our world is arranged.
And it has to be changed. And the world can be much better.
It can.
The creative society.
It can.
Everything can be different.
It has to be better. In any case, we are striving for it. In reality, we see that humanity has a chance. If we do not believe that humanity has a chance, we wouldn't have spent so much time and effort on creating even this multi-purpose complex, Voskhod. The question will arise for some people right away. Guys, if all this is so complicated, how did you do it? It will arise 100%. I'll answer. I won't tease you, friends. We used 2 previous developments. Therefore, we,
Succeeded.
although it was a little bit difficult, but we managed to do it. And we did it with an open heart for the sake of the future. So, when you do it for people and for the sake of the future, when you do it from your heart, it feels good. It feels good indeed. It makes sense. Even, I'm sorry, such a material thing, and it's a trivial material thing, but it's inspiring when you see that it can change the world for the better. That's the point.